Hey guys, welcome to our math lesson for today. Today we're going to start by doing some counting backwards. I know that this is kind of small. This is a 200s chart, and I wanted to show it to you because I know that you probably only have a 100 chart at home. So what I want us to do is I want us to start with the number 200, and I want us to count back or tell what is 100 less than 200. 100 less than 200. What is that, guys? 100. You could also think about it and check 100 plus another 100 is 200. So 200 take away 100 is 100, okay? All right, now let's go back to 200. And let's take away 10. Let's count backwards from 200s by 10s. What's 10 less than 200? 190. What's 10 less than 190? 180. What's 10 less than 180? 170. What's 10 less? 160. 10 less than 160? 150. Are you noticing that pattern? Remember, we've talked about those patterns a lot when we were adding 10, but it's the same when we're taking 10 away. What pattern are you noticing in 200, 190, 180, 170, 160, 150? What pattern are you noticing in these numbers? Well, let's start with our ones place. What do you notice about the ones place in each of these numbers? They're all zeros, aren't they? What about the tens place? What are you noticing? Well, if we start at 150 and count forward by 10, we can notice that they're getting larger by 110. But remember, we were counting backwards. So what's happening to our tens when we're counting backwards? They're getting smaller by 110, aren't they? Why did 200s go to 100 when we counted backwards? We had to regroup those 200s because we no longer had 200, right? We were taking away a 10. So we had to turn one group of 100 into 10 tens to take one away. So we still have 100, but then we only had 9 tens when we took away that 110. So that's why it went back by that 100 because of that regrouping, okay? All right, guys, so now we're going to start with our math lesson, and we're going to start with our learning target. Our learning target this week is similar to our learning target from last week, but the operation that we're going to be practicing is different. So here's what our learning target says this week. I can subtract within 1,000 using place value, models, or drawings. So you see, I told you there are a lot of things that are the same in this learning target. Some things that are the same in this learning target and our learning target last week is within 1,000. What does within 1,000 mean? All the numbers that are less than 1,000, right? So the 1-digit, the 2-digit, and the 3-digit numbers. Well, what about place value? What is place value? Remember, place value is the value that's assigned to the digit based on its position in the number. So we've been talking about this 2 a lot. This 2-digit here is in the position of the tens place. So it has the value of 2 groups of 10 or 20. What about the 3-digit? What position is it found in? It's found in the hundreds place. It has the value of 300s or 300. All right, we've talked about models and we've talked about drawings also, haven't we? Models are those things that we are using, like our base 10 or place value blocks. You used them digitally, but that is a concrete model that you've had, okay? Drawings are like sketches that you create, okay? So we are going to learn about subtracting 3-digit numbers using models and drawings. So let's look at that word subtract. Subtract means to take one number from another number. So let's look. 2 minus 1 equals 1. What do you notice about this equation? We start with a larger number. We take away a smaller number, and it leaves us with a smaller number than we started with. Addition and subtraction are the opposites of each other. So if you do subtraction, then you could check that with addition. Now, the answer to our subtraction problem here is called the difference. We want to find the difference or the distance in 2 and 1, and that's just one number, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and turn in our Ready Math Journals. In our Ready Math Journals, Volume 2, to page 415. You'll see a picture of a dog and a cat, okay? We are on 415. So we have subtracted 2-digit numbers. We've also practiced adding 3-digit numbers. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take what we've learned about the place value, and we are going to practice subtracting 3-digit numbers. We're going to use what we know to try to solve this problem, and then we will learn from what we did, okay? The problem says Holly has 368 Pet Pal cards. Dara has 243 cards. How many more cards does Holly have than Dara? So I want you to retell this problem in your own words. We know Holly has some Pet Pal cards. I'm guessing these are Pet Pal cards, kind of like Pokemon cards, but they're pets instead, right? So Holly has some Pet Pal cards and Dara has some Pet Pal cards, okay? Now let's read it again to see what it is that we're trying to solve or figure out. Holly has 368 Pet Pal cards. Dara has 243 cards. How many more cards does Holly have than Dara? What are we trying to solve here? We know that one of them has more, but we want to know how many more. This kind of goes back to comparing numbers, right? When we were comparing numbers, we were looking for the numbers that were larger or smaller. But here, we want to know how much larger, don't we? We want to know that difference in those two numbers. Let's read it again to see what information that they've included that we can use to solve this problem. Holly has 368 Pet Pal cards. Dara has 243 cards. How many more cards does Holly have than Dara? All right, guys, I want you to take a minute and I want you to solve this problem. When you're done, we can unpause the video and talk through what we did, okay? All right, so you should have already worked through this problem. Now we're coming back to check and see what you already knew about solving this problem and how we can improve to do better next time, okay? We're trying to solve the question, how many more cards does Holly have than Dara? Okay? So here we're thinking about our whole. What is our whole number of cards here? Our whole number of cards are Holly's, 368. Dara has 243. We want to find out how many more Holly has than Dara. So we want to find the difference or the distance in between those two numbers, okay? So what we're going to do is you could have solved this two ways. You could have started with 243, and you could have added that missing part to get the total of 368. Or we could have started with Holly's 368 cards and taken away Dara's 243 cards to find the distance between those, or how many are in between those two numbers, okay? So either way we solved it, we should have gotten the same total, shouldn't we? Now, one of the ways that we could have done this was with the virtual tool, the virtual place value block. So let's go ahead and let's pull up those virtual place value blocks. All right, I'm going to leave this here for now just so that I can remember my numbers. So we're going to start with 368. I know that 368 has 3 hundreds. I know that 368 has 6 tens. And I know that 368 has 8 ones. Remember, I can hit this button right here and it puts everything in a nice organized way for me, okay? Now, I am taking away 243. So do I need to add any more blocks? No, I'm going to have to remove some. So now I'm going to look at 243 to see how many I need to remove. I need to remove 2 hundreds. I need to remove 4 tens. And I need to remove 3 ones. Okay. Now, I should have that missing part, shouldn't I? 100, 2 tens, and 5 ones. So that would be 125. Is that what you found? 125? Great job if it was. If it wasn't, do you think that you could do that again? Or you could use what we just did and do that next time? All right, so let's check it with adding up to find the distance. So we're going to start with 243, and we want to get to 368. Do you think that we'll still have 125 as the amount of cards that Holly has more? Let's see. So if I'm at 243, let me add 100. What's 243 plus 100? 343. Now I need to get to 68. So if I'm at 343, I could add 10 to get me to 353, couldn't I? Could I add 10 more? Yeah. So I could add 10 more to 353 to get to 363. And then the difference between 363 and 368 is 5. Okay? So what does this number show on my number line? That shows Dara's cards. What does this show? Holly's cards. What does this show? It shows the distance in between those, doesn't it? So 100 plus 10 is 110, plus 10 more is 120, plus 5 more is 125. So either way that we did it, we still found that the distance between 368 and 243 is 145. Let's go back and look here. So we need to answer the question, how many more cards does Holly have than Dara? Holly has 125 more cards. Okay? All right, now let's go ahead and let's look over at page 416. 416. So it wants us to answer, that's where we just answered, how many more cards does Holly have than Dara? We know that is 125, and we're going to put our units 125 cards, more cards, okay? All right, now it's going to help us to solve problems in the future by this look ahead. It says sometimes you have to regroup to subtract 3-digit numbers. Write less than, greater than, or equal to compare hundreds, tens, and ones. So in 368, they've written in an expanded form, 300 plus 60 plus 8. Then they took 249 and wrote that in expanded form, 200 plus 40 plus 9. And we're going to compare the hundreds, the tens, and the ones. So 300s and 200s. Is that greater than, less than, or equal to? 300 is greater than 200s. All right? 6 tens and 4 tens, which is greater? 6 tens is greater. What about 8 ones and 9 ones? 9 ones is greater. So when we look at those ones, 8 ones is not enough to subtract 9 ones, is it? So we would have to go and take a group of 10 and regroup that into our 10 ones, okay? So whenever we have ones that are not, we don't have enough ones to take them away, we'll have to regroup our tens. It says there are not enough ones in 368 to subtract 249 without regrouping. It says show how to write 368 in a different way to show more ones. So 368 can also be written as 300s, 5 tens, but remember we regrouped one of those groups of 10 into 10 ones, and we're going to add it with that 8 ones. So one group of 10 regrouped into ones is 10 plus 8, which is 18 ones. Okay? All right, so the reflect question wants you to answer. How can you tell when you need to regroup to subtract? How can you tell when you need to regroup to subtract? Go ahead and pause the video and answer that question. All right, so you need to regroup to subtract when you have more ones to take away from fewer ones. Okay? So when we have more ones that we need to take away from fewer ones, we'll have to regroup our tens to solve. Okay? All right, guys, so now you are going to practice using these place value models or drawings to solve some more problems on your own. Okay? Don't forget about your virtual place value blocks that you are welcome to use to help you with this. We will continue looking at this to help us grow our mathematical thinking and be able to subtract within 1,000 using place value models or drawings. All right, bye guys.